turkey for me, turkey for you. Let's eat the turkey in my big brown shoe. Love to eat the turkey at the table. I once saw a movie with Betty Grable. Eat that turkey all night.
Is this like a super long 20 seconds, or did I lose?
No, sorry. My wife decided to start talking. What's going on, everybody?
I was like, is he like talking to us, like introing, and like
yeah,
he's just
I was muted, and I didn't even know. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Archons Corner. I am the one, the only, the WOOKIE. You already heard Jupiter. What's up, Jupe?
Hey, watching the Patriots game, having fun, talking,
yes.
fun stuff. Yeah.
Fun stuff. You heard Draskor. What's going on, Draskor?
It's going good. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing well. You got Sheep? What's up, Sheep?
My house purchase is more of a rehab than a house purchase.
Oh, boy.
Oh boy.
More to come on following episodes. And we have Ewok. What's up, Ewok?
Hello, Keyforge community. Great to be back again.
He loves saying that. He loves it so much, it's not even funny.
Hey, they let me on the cast again, so I'm excited to be here.
But got a lot to go over today. I think really where we want to start out with is some ABR news. So, Draskor, what do you got going on in the ABR?
Well, we completed our first week of ABR, and we thought it might be fun to do a little recap, look at what happened, and it's easiest for me to talk about my team and how my team did and whatnot. But thought it'd be interesting dual analysis for adaptive best of 3 week.
Weird story. Draskor's team lost all 3 games. No? Okay. But go ahead.
Well, there's 12 players per team.
Oh, 12 players? I thought there was only 3 per
12.
team.
Hey, Jasper, could you tell us your roster for this season?
Oh yeah. Here we go. So
It's
give
the
me
dream
1
team.
second. I am very happy with my draft. So alphabetical order, we got Anxious Pirate, we got Dazyog, we've got This, got Draskor, of course. We got the Dr. Sheep, got Emperor Ruku, we've got Lokar, got Philly No One, got Sidey, Arkellis, Scrouner, and if I didn't draft them, I wouldn't have heard at the end of it, so I drafted X-Ray. So it's pretty.
Every team needs a handicap.
Yep, exactly.
I'm laughing in the corner. I'm sorry. You had what do you mean? If you didn't draft him, you'd never hear the end of it.
Well, so last season, X-Ray wasn't on my team.
Okay.
And every time I talked to him for the first couple of weeks, he's like, "Why'd you pass over me? It's like I gotta draft him. I gotta get him."
It's like he's so upset he's the last kid picked in dodgeball. Why didn't you take me, man? I was right here.
X-Ray is an awesome player. He is a hot commodity on the ABR draft.
Our team is playing against them this week, so they already won. They already won the feature.
You've already won.
Yeah, it happened, Jupe, but we turned it around last night, so we took 2 wins.
Yeah, that's fine. I wasn't too. I'm not too worried about this week. This wasn't a week I wanted to feature, but they made me feature it. So, but I'll see you guys in the playoffs. Don't worry.
We came back and took at least another win today.
Yeah,
man, this is heated.
Oh, we're both facing off. So Jupiter and I are facing Draskor's team. So
okay.
that's a little bit of a little bit.
I like the competitiveness though. I'm a big fan of that.
There's lots of good chatter.
Except for Sheep. Sheep doesn't compete.
Well, I mean, Sheep's there. Hold on.
Yeah.
To be fair, Sheep's there.
I just win. I don't have to compete.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I did see that you narrowly took out our Karen, which made us very sad.
It was very narrow.
Yeah.
It was. I got my last key, and she was on 6 amber with plenty of stuff left, but I just squeaked it.
And I'm gonna give a huge shout out. I played my game yesterday against Arkellis. Awesome, phenomenal game. But our game literally was right at the very end. That if I did not go ahead and have the control of the week, for basically my ability to forge that last key and limit the amber control, I would have lost.
Control of the week, best card possibly the best card in the game.
Well, there was it was a really, really nice back and forth. It was a double TMT proc deck that I was actually facing. So really sweet, forcing your Amber up, triple Nerve Blast, so the ability to go ahead and not only take you down to 6 with the double TMT, but also to pull off. It caused some real issues, and I made a really highly calculated choice. We talk oftentimes about holding on to cards. And I saw that I had 3 cards in the end of my deck. One being Gateway, one being Control the Weak, and then a random Shadows card that frankly didn't play. At the time, I had 2 of my 3 miasmas that were in my deck and a bad penny. And so I opted to go ahead and basically play the 1 miasma, play the board, kind of finish. I knew at this point that we're both near the end. I'm expecting the TMTP. I just haven't seen it. And that was a real big issue. So I could go ahead and Gateway. I had actually Hypnotic Command for 6. So if you want to see that was the play that I was super pumped about that I hadn't seen before. And Hypnotic Command to pull 6 off, pull him off check. And then the follow-up turn was actually to get Gateway, take it. It bumps me to 18, but with the double TMTP, you're just looking at it as you can't go ahead and basically you can't allow the TMTP to go off, but I knew that I would. It just is, where is it going to be at? And it was a great back and forth game. I know that Rich was going ahead and kicking himself for not using one of his Nerve Blasts the turn before, because if he had hit the Nerve Blast the turn before, there's a turn right before the end, he would have won. I just had to be at 7. I had 1 left. I had 1 disc creature and needed to go ahead and stick out. And I needed to be able to come back with that Control the Weak. So it was that close. So I understand, Sheep. That's why they're fun. And that's why they're epic games and we really enjoy it. And we sat talking shop afterwards. And I would have sat there afterwards talking if I had lost too. So it's just, that's why I love Keyforge right there.
Yeah, he's a good guy to chat with.
So you're thankful for Keyforge?
Yes.
I mean, and I know we'll get into that, but those are those little moments in those nuggets that you get, and you're just like, that was just such a cool game to go back and forth. It's right on the edge, and he got the check. So if I don't have the Control of the Weak to allow, and I had cycled my deck. It was at that point that I cycled, and I needed to draw back into one of the 2 Control the Weaks. I didn't get it on the first turn, so he TMTP'd me, and that basically was enough to be able to push it up. I needed to be able to respond, otherwise I lost the game there. So I love those games.
Yeah.
I hate those games.
Lots of fun games.
I hate those games. I just do. I don't
want a railroad.
Listen, I don't ever want to play in a close game. I want to be like Sheep. I just want to show up and win. Right? That's my kind of fun. But that's me. But what are the kids saying nowadays? I'm built different or whatever.
But
I mean, we saying that.
But we talked about this. It was this why we love card games. We're looking at that mental stimulation. This was extremely stimulating for me. I had to think. I had to go ahead, and it actually started. And we were playing Oubliette. So both of my decks were alive because Saurian was actually what was picked to be banned, and I did not bring Saurian at all. And I should totally go ahead and bring this up. The deck that I chose to play was I had an 86 SAS, Lorinda Ops. It's my French deck that is MM, Sanctum, Star Alliance, Untamed with 17 speed. And I sat it. And chose to take a 72 SAS Coda deck. And that's where I think you have to be a thoughtful player as to which is the better matchup for you. And the deck that I sat did not have the Amber control. It did have Book of Malefication. So Book of Malefication, but if it sits, it's in the bottom card, that game is just over and I don't stand a chance with it. And I knew the other deck a little bit better, and I knew that it had the Amber control to stick around. It has a nice Arise suite, And that's what actually sealed it in the end. Is he went to 7, and I drumbled, was able to go ahead, drumble, reaped, and then I controlled the weak for the win. And that was the difference in the game right there.
Nice. So I was running some numbers on, or at least looking at the numbers, if you will, on what our team played, just to try to learn from what I could from how we did from adaptive, right? That was interesting. So we brought quite the range of decks. We brought an 81 AOA was our high, and it's AOA 81. So it's even
those
stronger
don't
all the way down.
exist.
They do, and that's telling you something.
They
all the way down to a 58 Worlds Collide Brobnar deck.
Those also don't exist.
So yeah, well, it's got your beautiful NARPs, right?
Ooh,
so,
I love NARP.
Actually, Drazcor, you are piquing my interest right now, because for adaptive, I played a 59 SAS Worlds Collide Brobnar deck.
Did you play Capsize again?
I did not play Capsize. I actually played my double. Yeah, that's actually higher. It was 59 SAS. It was my double anomaly deck.
Double anomaly.
Which ones?
Yeah. It has Grim. It has Infancer and Grim Reaper.
Interesting.
For my adaptive deck, I played an 81 SAS deck with 2 raw amber.
There
2 raw.
Go.
Wow.
I won.
That's interesting.
I won
right?
2-0.
Okay. Well, because that's not so. This is interesting, right? Because that is not like a quote unquote normal deck, right? Like you're not going to just do quote unquote the traditional stuff and expect the same outcome, right? So your opponent had to adapt to that as they were trying to play with the deck, right? As they were playing against you.
Yeah, I picked it because it's a very difficult deck to play. It's a deck I got off of Julie Merkler. And so it's Julie July for those who know her on Discord. But it was a deck I traded she wanted a Graviton deck, so I was like, oh, I'll take this because it looks cool, because it has a really interesting Mars suite with Compod and Brainstem Antenna and like lots of cool creatures. And then it has like a double Arise, double Drumble, double Schuler disc kit. So like it just does. It's like it doesn't generate amber in the traditional way, but there's a lot of cool tools because it has logos too. So there's a lot of cool tools that you can set up your brainstem to be like an amber engine, and it's not intuitive like at all. Like it took me forever to win with it, but once I started winning with it, I was like, this is my adaptive deck. It's like so like weird, but like once you learn how to pilot it, you have a good chance of winning the first game, and it's a drag out like control-y kind of game. And then as long as your opponent's playing anything decent, like that you can spike amber with, you just spike amber, and like by the time they figure that out, usually like it's a bit late, and like there are ways to control the amber. So it's just like I think for adaptive, like your piloting skill is on display, because you are bringing a deck that you hopefully can pilot to that first game win, which I think is very crucial in almost any adaptive match. And then like you want to be able to take your opponent's deck and do well with it too, right? But like the key is like how disruptive is your deck and how different does it play. I think like the more unique your deck is, the harder it is for your opponent to play correctly. Even if they see you play it well in the first game, like, and they're probably paying more attention to how are they trying to win with their deck than they are like really getting the ideas of what you're doing with your deck, right? So I think that's the trick to adaptive. I think the trick is like play a deck you can win your first game with that is just odd. And if you get that, usually I think you're in a good spot.
Yeah, that is what I try to do, right? I try to bring something that is a little tricky to play that I can win with, because I know how it does and doesn't work. But some of these other folks that won, right? So the 58 Worlds Collide Brobnar, that won, and it was it lost both the first 2 games, that deck, right? And it went to a 17 chain bid. So Lokar bid 17 chains and won his opponent's deck. And then when he won the game, he still had 10 chains left on his deck, on his opponent's deck. and so won the match that way, which is a different strategy, but it worked here. It worked here. 17 chains, pretty crazy.
That's really interesting because my 59 SAS is a straight 58 arc. It's got only 5 for amber control and 9 expected amber with 7 that's printed, and you're just looking at it, and it took both of the games. Now, I will say that I did not go ahead and do well because you have to be able to look at efficiency. You have to be able to see that as kind of a positive or negative. But knowing kind of the strengths and weaknesses for your deck is really, really interesting. So I love to see that Lokar took that all the way to 17 chains. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I also think like the second way that you approach adaptive, which is also viable, is like you play a deck that you're just amazing with, like that's just gonna win your first game outright, like, and then you just know how to bid chains on it in game 3. Like you're gonna lose game 2 with it most of the time, so like that when you go, I've done that too with jokes. Because like that's obviously my pet deck, and I've played in adaptive games with it where like I just crush you game 1, and then like game 2 you probably crush me, and then game 3 I go, we're how high do you want to go in chains? Like we'll do this dance, or you could do the opposite and bring trash, like a piece of trash, and just like be like, well, okay, how high are we gonna go in chains? Like how high am I gonna bid for your deck because I want your deck because I obviously don't want to play mine, right? So it's adaptive is just a monster as far as like versatility goes. There's so many different ways to approach it, and none of them I think are wrong or right. Like it's just a matter of like how you're like what kind of mental game you're trying to play with your opponent.
I'm so glad I'm not playing. I mean, I've never done an ABR, but I'd be playing for all the wrong reasons.
So one other thing I found was really... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Wookie.
I'm just saying, like I said, I'd be playing for all the wrong reasons. I'm rocking Heart at Chainbound right now, guys, and Dan hates his life when I show up on Sundays. I know he does.
I know it's 35-minute round, and then you drag them out, and then maybe if you won, I would feel better about it, but you don't.
I believe the deck is 2-2 right now. So
yep, that's not winning.
Well, I mean, it's not losing either.
Okay.
So I'm just saying.
So I think this is where Heart really gets a bad name. Is one, it drags out the game, so everyone else is kind of sitting there, especially when you're on a timepiece. If it has a win con, then great, it's there. But when you go to time, it's just one of those feel bad moments. And again, I was just listening to the recent cast for Help from Future Self, and you're looking for that ideal game. And that's one of the pieces that popped up is, you just don't want to go to time. It's a feel bads moment all the time. And I think that's what Heart really brings to the game, unfortunately.
I am getting to spend 35 minutes of quality time with my opponent. We're really getting to know each other.
Yeah, but it's quality that you're seeing, but they may not be enjoying it on the other side. And so that's where we look at it as a, partnership. Again, when I had this game with Rich for Archons, like it was back and forth, Wookie. And so we were, we're talking in the background, we're enjoying it. There was moments where it's just quiet and silent because you're thinking and you need to be in that thought process. But you hear laughter, you hear giggling. It's not just you snickering off in the background because you got Heart here and nothing can be done to stop it. I mean, that's the short answer is like, sure, I have a Heart deck. I love it. But if you don't have an answer, it's just essentially a one-sided game while the other person's there. And there is no other way to stop it if you don't have artifact control. So it's a feel-bads moment.
You bring the right deck and you have the right answer.
Correct. And if you know that ahead of time, that's fine. But if you don't have that and, your deck is just perfectly fine and it's missing artifact control,
This is just all my campaign to prove that hard R is important.
I don't think that it's important all the time. And I will say, for ABR, you should definitely join in the future. It's fun. It's a teamwork. Even when I lost last week, you can cheer on your other teammates, and they pulled it out. So even when you fail, it's that whole idea of, as I wrestled earlier, I think Jupiter, we talked about this. Yeah. You don't have to win your individual match. You want to do well, but if not, the team can still carry you. And that's a really cool aspect here.
Yeah. I mean, right now, you guys know my situation, so I'd just be letting my team down, to be honest with you. Just with my time being so precious right now. And there's just not a lot of it. So, I mean, I'm more glad I didn't join ABR because I don't have to then go, hey guys, gotta back out because reasons, and here's my reasons. So I mean that's more of a thing. I joke with I'm glad I'm not playing because I'm joining for all the wrong reasons, but I don't know. I don't understand the bad rap for Heart. It's 35 minutes. It is what I mean. We act like 35 minutes is this
forever.
It's not forever. It's literally the length of a TV show.
Well, what was funny was on Chainbound on Tuesday for Sealed. Now this was Sealed. A whole bunch of the games had finished, and then one person, there was a little bit of chastising that was going on, like, oh, we're all watching the one game, and they're like, it feels like it's been going on forever. And I think it was U-Sheep. You're like, we still have 22 minutes left. Like, even at that point, most people had finished, and they were looking at it like, oh, this is so long. No, it depends on the individual game that you're looking at. Again, if there is an out for the person playing, I have no problem with it, but there is no out feature unless you have a standard hard R against Heart of the Forest. And unfortunately, Heart just shows up in too many decks where it doesn't have a win con. There's some phenomenal decks where it's there and it can change the game and win the game, but there's too many that it's just randomly another card because it's a procedurally generated deck game. That's what we have.
I believe that there was a game in KFPL that had Jason Bargender playing against Grant that had Heart, and Jason had no way to get him out, and he ended up winning by basically playing his deck so smartly to set up that he could win with the Coliseum or some random. It might not have been Coliseum, but it was like it was one of the dinosaur key cheats, but like and he was able to basically navigate to a win, and like the whole time people were going, he can't win. I'm like, I think he's setting something up. I could see it, I could smell it, but I couldn't see it. Then when he did it, we were all like, oh my god, that was so good.
But okay, so both Jason and Grant were in my section, both bringing Heart. So you have two highly skilled Heart players, which gives you a huge advantage when you're playing Heart. There's a lot of people who won't play it, so they don't know how to play against it. And number two, you said something really, really important. Against Heart, that key cheat is huge. Huge, because what ends up happening, if he doesn't have the key cheat, there's no way to win. You have to have that ability where you go two, you're going to either push them so that they have to forge their second and then you get to go, or you have to have a key cheat at the right time.
Yeah, like, and I was just counterpointing the fact that you said if you don't have hard R, you can't win.
Correct.
That's all I was saying.
No, I yes, technically there are other ways around it. Most people don't see it.
It is extraordinarily difficult to win against Heart without hard R.
I think that it's becoming.
A key cheat, you can do it because you can just push.
And I'm not saying there's not ways. I'm just saying it's tough. Like it's not the easiest thing to do in the world.
Well, what I think is interesting is that AOA brought in Heart. We haven't seen it since, but since then there have been a lot of No, and I don't think that we will see it again, but I think there's a lot more tools now with the amount of capture that exists. And AOA had some capture, but it was an odd entity. That ability to capture and then send it basically to your opponent at the right time is also a critical component. And the best Heart decks that I see, frankly, have the ability to go ahead and archive cards. And that's what I'm seeing over and over and over again. Without logos for archive, frankly, Heart doesn't really stand a competitiveness from what I've seen.
Mine doesn't, but it does okay.
The best Heart I've seen is Jason Bargender's one that has like Double Nature's Call, Choda, and like all other kinds of craziness going on with it. And it has Logos archiving, memory chip, all that stuff too. So like that deck is just insane. Like that is a wonderfully high level deck. So I love it.
All right, Drascore, I keep cutting you off, so I'm sorry. You had been going through all of these stats very nicely. What else did you see looking at this at Adaptive?
So here's an interesting one, and this is very small sample size. So I don't think we should take this as, oh my gosh, we've struck upon something monumental. But I did find it really interesting. So, all right, so we went 9-3. We did pretty well. So I was starting to look at, okay, what were the 3 decks that lost versus the 9 that won? And I stumbled upon something that was really interesting. All the decks, except for 2 decks, had one or more stat weaknesses, if you will, right? If you go to DOK and you just purely look at the numbers without looking at the deck lists, you'd say that like, oh, that's going to be, that number feels like it's probably a problem. And the two decks who did not have a stat weakness, both those decks lost. And the other deck that lost was the 62, which didn't have a particular stat that was very low, but just lower numbers in general. So this was interesting because it got me thinking, maybe those decks that didn't have a particularly weak stat or were kind of balanced were too traditionally good or just too traditional to play. So their opponent was able to outplay them and win the match versus the other decks that had some one or more weak stats, even at the at the 81 had a weak stat. So I thought that was interesting.
I feel like super oddball decks always throw super competitive decks like a curve. Like your oddball 62 that does one thing super well, like always throws that deck that's like got the high SAS mark, got everything super competitive. I feel like it always throws it a curve because it's like weighted in one area. And that deck's, typically your higher end decks are very balanced, right? And they do almost everything well, right? They control Ember well, they control the board well. They do a lot of just good stuff. But like when you have a deck that's so heavily focused on just like a thing, like it really puts those decks that are like super competitive and again super balanced, it just gives them fits. Because it can handle almost everything, but it can't handle this one thing. It can handle it maybe, but eventually it's going to poke through. Does that make sense?
Yeah, or the pilot's just not used to having to face.
I don't think it's necessarily the pilot.
C.
Right. I don't think it's necessarily the pilot. But like I said, like the deck does the like 62 SAS whatever. Like it does one thing extraordinarily well. But like that 81 SAS deck, it's like, okay, it can control it, but for how long? Right? And at some point, like, it's like, okay, I gotta like cycle through cards, and if you can't cycle fast enough, eventually, like, that just not enough is gonna poke through and give that deck fits. That's what I've seen. I don't know. Anybody else chime in?
Yeah, it's a matchup game, right? And so if you're going to bring a quote-unquote strange deck, are you throwing off what that person and playing that deck had normally faced and had felt really good with those types of matchups and generated a type of matchup that's really strange? Sometimes that can win. I don't know that that's consistent at like Archon, but like for adaptive, I think that could work really well.
Maybe. But we're about halfway through the episode now, guys. Should we get into what this is Ewok segment. So I'm actually going to let Ewok kind of chime in. Ewok, tell me what we're getting into the next segment.
All right. So for all of our American listeners, we have this amazing holiday called Thanksgiving that is quickly approaching. And I know with my fifth graders, we work on kind of using this month to show what we're thankful for and gratitude. And that's where it connects with all of us around the world is that, there's a lot of nasty things kind of happening. But if we slow down, if we really take some time and acknowledge that we are blessed and we have a lot that is in our lives, one, we can appreciate it more. And frankly, we don't necessarily do that enough, me individually or this cast or the world as a whole. So today I kind of proposed, what are we thankful for Keyforge? There's a lot that you can kind of, doom and gloom and look at, but there's also a lot that I'm really, really thankful for. And hopefully we can dig into that. So what are you guys thankful for?
I was going to say, well, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
I'm thankful for endless hours of entertainment in so many different decks. Like, I just don't get bored. Just play, I'm like, oh, tired of this deck? Hey, there's a new deck. Totally different things. Totally different interest. Just for hours. Could hold my attention.
I'm just thankful for all the people who continue to come out and play games with me. It keeps me from being lonely.
Oh,
Aw. Aw, Dan.
It's not you,
Yes.
Wookie.
Oh,
Nah.
okay, fine.
with your heart of the forest.
I'll go back to
Heart
the
in the
corner.
forest.
I'll go back to the
playing with
corner.
us. He comes and plays with us once every 3 or 4 months, and then brings Heart of the Forest.
This is true. Hey, it's
Sounds
when
like-
I get time, man. When time is very like when I have a lot of time, I'm there all the time, and then when I don't, I'm not.
Yeah, and when he gets a chance to play, he brings something super slow, so he maximizes his.
Hey, I need
Time per
every
game.
minute of Keyforge that I can get right now, okay? And if I need every minute, I need all 35 of them. What better way to get all 35 minutes?
And in essence, it does extend the amount of time you're at the shop, which means there's more time for him to spend with people.
Yeah.
Like, I get it.
You know, I like John. I like talking. You know, so I mean, it's for me, it's winning. And you should. I want you to see it the same way. You get to spend more time with me.
Yes, it's winning.
Just
Yeah.
bring some hair clippers and shave Wookiee down. You'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
He won't rip your arms off. I promise.
Did we get Ewok? I mean, Ewok, this is your idea.
I thought we'd go a round table, so I didn't want to go
okay.
ahead and step over. I mean, I have honestly a list. There is no question. So right now, so far, I've heard Endless Hours of Entertainment, Escape from Loneliness. Wookie, I guess I put Winning for You is what I heard.
It's called social interaction.
So social interaction.
Social
Okay, we can do that.
interaction with beings that are not 13 and 11 years old.
Mhm, that
I
is
mean,
a good one.
they might be, but I'm not responsible for them, so I consider that a win.
All right, Jupiter, what are you thankful for with the Keyforge community? Or with Keyforge?
I am thankful for Keyforge for the past 2 years supporting my content and like people like Wookie and Blake and stuff helping me get to where I'm at. Because of Keyforge, I got my master's degree, so I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful for all the people, especially Z, that helped me with KFPL and admin and stuff like that. And you had Carl, who initially came on with CKM and stuff, and you had Muffins and all the Screech Bomb guys and all these people I value very highly as friends and community, and helping me with that. And I am just thankful that like there's opportunities to play Keyforge and that the community is so good at creating them. I think that Keyforge is a very unique game in the aspect of it's been like 100% by us for us, and I am absolutely not thankful for the way FFG has handled this, but I'm hoping that the next year that they get it right and we are rewarded for our diligence and our loyalty to a company that hasn't really I don't feel like they've respected us enough yet. So hopefully this move that's coming up will be that, right? Like, and it's really the tipping point for me. I'm either all in or all out when I see what they do. So, but I do love this game and the community. That's the only reason I'm still here is because of the people.
I think the first piece that jumped out to me and why I continue to stick with this game is the gameplay length to complexity. So I can get in those quicker games. I mean, when we're talking 15, 20 minutes to sit down, it's realistic with 2 little kids that I can manage it with my professional life, with my family, with my beautiful wife and the 2 girls, and with other commitments. But I'm also still seeing the complexity. I know, Dresker, you talked about different decks, different challenges. And so I do find it engaging and complex, especially compared to the game length. I've played board games for a while, and I enjoy board games, but oftentimes it's harder to be able to sit down, drag out a game. You're setting up. You're looking at an hour plus, and Keyforge just offers a great time to be able to play, and then the length to complexity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the big things I think Jupiter touched on is it is the community, right? I don't think, again, I'm kind of in the same boat he is. I'm either all in or I'm all out. And that's your move, FFG. But if it wasn't for the community, yeah, I'd probably be gone. You know what I mean? I would have moved on.
I mean, there's so many people out there doing
and there's so many
things.
good people, right? I mean, this is the first game where I can say, like, I've really never, ever, ever had, like, just an awful interaction, either at the highest level of play or at the lowest level of play. And that is tough to find in especially card games. Like, and I guess I'm just going to poke at Magic for a little bit here, because it's what I do. Like, Magic's community, and it's not as a whole, but a lot of it, I would say at least 51% of it, is just absolutely toxic. Right? And maybe it's just, I haven't found that with Keyforge, but with Magic, like, you don't have to throw too many stones before you just find that utterly toxic person who's just, nobody wants to play him, nobody really wants to deal with him. He's got his own little crew of people that, like, you really don't want to play with or deal with, but you're going to kind of probably have to. Like, and I'm sure Jupiter can back me up on this. Like, Magic is just toxic all around, and they're like the gold standard.
But I think Yu-Gi-Oh is worse. But in my opinion, from what I've seen, and I mean, I walked into a Yu-Gi-Oh. I don't play Yu-Gi-Oh, never have, so I don't know for real. But the couple of times I've interacted with them because they were in the same spot that my Magic tournament was in, I've heard people threaten to kick little kids' butts because of whatever reason, to take one outside and stab them. Like, it sounds like it's a very West Side Story kind of game.
All right, so that might be more toxic than Magic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very small
so big.
sample size.
And honestly, Magic is so big that it's easier to find toxic points, right?
Sure.
Like, that's the key to it and stuff. I'm sure that there are probably toxic Keyforge players, but we just get rid of them.
I really haven't found any.
Couple of guys that were, like, not so great around, but they all disappear because nobody plays with them, or they get rid of them. Right. Like, if you watch the TCO banter, there was definitely a guy that was super annoying in the TCO group. As not like the TCO themselves, but I'm talking about, like, in the chats and stuff. And then he would just go in and ruin people's games, try to ruin people's games. He was just an idiot. But they got rid of him, so, like, it just. And there's always toxic people, and I think per capita, like, we do really well. Like,
I would say we do. I would say we really do. Did we get everybody? Did we go around the horn?
We did go around the horn. Sheep put in a last one. I don't know if he is. He's still here, so go ahead and shout it out, Sheep.
Say, I am thankful for not having to build decks. It makes a card game playable for me. I'm very thankful for that.
Is that one final jab at Flesh and Blood? Like, I gotcha.
I'm thankful for Flash in the Pan, as it chases off all the not true hardcore Keyforgers. I'm thankful for Smack Talk.
Hey, sometimes you need a little something. I don't know, like, to a degree, like I said, I miss deck building. And that is why I kind of went.
Put me to sleep.
Fair enough. But I do like, to a degree, it is something I understand a lot of Keyforge players aren't here to deck build. And I get that's the appeal to it. I wish they would do something where there was some form of deck building.
I mean, they have created like, cubes and stuff, which is somewhat deck building.
Yeah, but, I would like to draft, but then you got to find people. Like, I would really like to be able to do this on, right now, especially TCO would be a great place, but I know that's probably really extraordinarily hard to code. So I'm not going to be like, you need to make this happen, because it's just tough.
I think that Keyforge has built its name on the unique deck system, on having a set group of cards. And I think that while there are many other games where you will deck build, I don't see that unless it's a fan-made, format that's basically brought up. I think Cube is fine. I don't have any issues with that. But if you have a model, if you've built a game around something, to go against that completely seems counterintuitive to me. So I don't necessarily see that. But I will go with my next item, which was the uniqueness of decks and games. I think that every game is unique. I can play that same deck over and over and over as I'm practicing, and I'm getting a different experience because the cards are coming up different because I'm facing different decks. And so, I guess it goes back with Drazgor, your endless hours of entertainment, but it is because of that uniqueness of the decks and having to play off cards. I'm not going ahead and I wouldn't select every card that's in each of my decks. But that's also what makes this game great. So I really enjoy that. And I think that required some thoughtful design ahead of time. So.
And also the situation we're in right now. So, potato.
Part of the reason that you play any game is because it's unique in some fashion or another. Like every game has its own signature, like its own pulse, and Keyforge is just absolutely unique because it's the first of its kind. It's the same reason that people fell in love with Magic, or the reason we fell in love with Keyforge, because when Magic first hit the scene, it was really the first of the firsts, right? Like it's the first game like it. So it was the one that basically set the tone for Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and all these other things, right? They came out and started the same window, but it was Magic that really set the tone for the industry and stuff like that. And then Richard Garfield did it again with Keyforge, and Keyforge is absolutely phenomenal in the way that it is because it's so unique. And so some people like it, some people won't. I think that the thing that is the biggest thing going against any kind of game that comes out now is that Magic is so ingrained in people that they just don't want to. And I've had Magic players admit that they just don't want to do something different because they have so much time and effort vested into the years of Magic that they've played. And that was the hardest thing for me, 25 years of Magic, to basically go, okay, I'm actually done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm going to give Keyforge all my attention to see if I can like it. Right. And I fell in love with it, but it really took me having to get out of the Magic mindset because it's a totally different kind of thing. So.
Now, I know that we talk about Magic here, but there were other games that, maybe I'm going to totally date myself here, but there were other games that were around that were CCGs. I'm thinking of On the Edge. I'm thinking of Spellfire. I'm thinking of Star Trek The Next Generation.
Sure.
You don't see them, but there are some early precursors that led to Magic being the success that it was. So I wouldn't say that there's none, just none have stood the test of time where, it has grown to the popularity that you see Magic is.
I don't think any of those games were the same as Magic, though. They were all...
Oh, no, they're all very different.
They weren't the kind of trading collectible card game kind of thing that Magic turned the page with what it was. It was the first time where you have resource management with, an aggressive life build, etc., blah blah blah. But it was the one. If you look on any kind of write up about gaming and stuff like that, they'll tell you that it was basically a pinnacle of that, of this genre of collectible card games.
Yes, I agree with that.
There were other deck building games and things like that, but they were all kind of inside of each other, and they all had their own mechanics and ways to win. And it was kind of like playing a board game with cards, right? It was kind of like that. Whereas this kind of took it to a whole nother level. So. Drafting and stuff, not something that was unique to it. I don't know, Magic is Magic. I got nothing bad to say about it. It as a child, I'm still have nostalgia talking about old Magic stuff, but I've moved on obviously with Keyforge, and now I'm playing Flesh and Blood, and I think they're evolutions of that. And I don't have the loyalty. I'm not stuck on the loyalty to that game anymore. And I think breaking that loyalty is the hard part because a lot of people can't afford to, right? Magic's not cheap, and getting the other games sometimes isn't cheap. But Keyforge was a good opportunity because it's really not expensive to get into, right? So that's another thing I'm thankful for is the price point of this game is easy to sell.
Yeah, I'll actually follow. I agree 100%. It was one of mine that was on there. I mean, $10 for a deck. It's a great ease of access to join.
Thousands of dollars later.
I understand, and that can be with any hobby, but it was that $10 hook that you can do this with $10. Now it's not. That's not what I have found, but I think that people sitting around a table could spend $20, on a date night and have 2 decks, and you could try them out.
Yeah, I mean that was my original hook was like, man, I just don't have time to deck build. Right, that was my biggest thing is I just don't have the time. So I mean, because you're talking with a lot of deck building, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours putting into that.
And the opposite side of that is that it's a puzzle. Like you get to solve a puzzle, right? Like every deck is a puzzle, and figuring it out is absolutely entertaining. Like that's kind of like on the lines of what Draz was saying. It's like every deck you pick up is a different puzzle. So like it's like having an endless like escape room, like trying to figure out stuff. So it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
And I definitely think there are benefits to that, but there are also downsides. But I don't know. I just like I wish, and I know it's all procedurally done. I wish they would have kept every deck a little more. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. I wish when maybe not so procedurally generated, but more idealized generated, where every deck is more close together. Where there's not these, there's not these big power differentials between two decks. So
I feel like, go ahead.
That's all I'm saying. Like just the power differentials, because there are, and I wish, and I think if they would have made that much tighter and much closer, where it literally could be like you're $20, or $10 or $30, and you can just show up to a chain, or not a chain bomb, but let's say like a vault tour and stand the opportunity to win, right? But like the chances of that, spending $20 or $30 and just showing up to a vault tour and be like, I'm ready, like that's not a thing that exists, right? Like
for sealed
it might. For sealed, I mean you should know, but like for sealed it is to a degree. But like for Archon, like you can't just go and be like, all right, I'm just gonna pick up some decks and these are gonna be my decks, or maybe like shuffle through $50 worth of decks and be like, all right, I think this is kind of the one I want to go with. It has some houses I like, and that's kind of it. Like that doesn't happen with Archon. From the tippity top to the biddity bottom, there is a wide gap, and I wish they would have made that a little tighter.
I think there's a real bell curve to it, right? So there's absolutely super strong decks that, and you need to bring those super strong decks to an Archon event. And if you just bring stuff in that 80%, it's going to be really hard to do well in a Vault Tour level Archon event. Just like there's, a little bit at the tail, the other tail, and some really, really junky decks. But I think if you just buy two decks, I think the chance that they're of relatively similar power level is pretty good. Asterisk. Asterisk being, this is such a matchup game that you can just have a matchup in two decks that favors one deck over another. And if you're only buying two decks like that, I could see where that might turn some folks off and feel like, oh, deck X always wins over deck Y. But with just a few decks more, you realize, oh, it's not that one deck dominates all these decks. It just dominates that deck, right? And just with a small pool of decks, right, you can, and that's how I played initially as when I was initially playing very casually. Didn't have a huge number of decks, but played them against each other and stuff and just had fun. And the first two decks, I think the one is now a 70 SAS and the other is a 67. The 70 SAS like almost always won. But like now, those decks are, or over time as I got more, it wasn't like that first 70 SAS deck kept winning everything.
I also want to put out there is still a chance that you can pull that lottery deck. I went back. One of the decks that I used for KFPL was Miss Triptychon. And that came from Mini Bees. So shout out to her. And she had at that point 20 decks or less. And that's it. And it is a absolutely phenomenal coded deck. So there are still decks that are out there that are just in someone's collection that they don't really even know the true power that's behind it. And I think that you can get people like us that are going to invest hours and hours and hours of this game. And you have others who just grab a deck, and that could be absolutely smoking that's out there.
Happen.
It can. I'm not going to, because I can't dispute the fact that it can, but.
Well, the other piece I think that's important, because I used to go ahead and think, okay, I can open this deck and it will be, one deck and it'll be competitive. And that's what I was looking at. And then listening to the interview with Dr. Richard Garfield in regards to that's not how the game was made. It wasn't intended to be balanced for power-wise. It was intended to be a randomly, procedurally generated deck game that was going to be unique with that experience on the deck name and on the cards. That has gone ahead and changed the way I look at this game, how I search for decks or play decks or pick decks. And frankly, it has brought me a little bit into the secondary market versus just randomly buying, deck after deck after deck or box after box. There are just some pieces, but we were talking stats aren't everything. Dr. Garfield doesn't have the stats on. This is second, and it's created by the community. I think that it helps curve people in the right direction and get them a lot closer to what can be successful, but it doesn't mean that those are the only decks that are successful. And it also has no impact on, are those the decks that are going to be fun? Success is very different from just sitting across from your partner, someone as a gaming buddy, and just having a blast with both of those decks.
Absolutely. We are coming up on our time. Next week, you guys will hear the lost episode, basically the episode I forgot to upload because I'm silly. Just totally forgot it. So you guys are going to hear the lost episode next week because next week is Thanksgiving for us here in the States, which means most of us will be hanging out with our families and doing that whole turkey thing. I'm doing chicken this year. I have come to that conclusion. I am not doing turkey because turkey is the worst of the birds. Just my opinion. What was that? Who laughed? Turkey is the worst of the birds. He's the 51 sass of birds.
Shaking my head here.
I don't like turkey. Anyways, so you're going to hear that next week. The week after that, we're trying to get somebody on right now. And we'll see if we can't make that happen. So I'll put a post on Twitter. If you guys do want to follow us on Twitter, it's at Archons Corner. Over at Facebook, at Archons Corner. And on YouTube, Archons Corner. And as always, patrons at the $5 or up tier listen ad-free. So if you're tired of listening to ads, come on over to Patreon. It is ad-free over there. So,
yeah,
guys...
So I can add on to that before you get to closing remarks. I did set up. We are set to have a little sneak peek here. Something to do with Keyforge Adventures coming up. So that
happened like while we recorded.
Yeah, there's a lot that's still happening in the background.
Okay.
The other two pieces, I know that you're going to close up, but I am extremely thankful for VTs that were able to happen. I have some lifelong friends that I can actually tribute that I love to keep in contact with. You also have fun little things like those silly fuzzy Gruen stuffies. So keep that coming, FFG, because that is like soft fuzzy crack. I mean, there's no question. You got cardboard crack in the game, and then now we got plushy crack. And I know that we have been hard on FFG, but I will definitely. But I am thankful this Thanksgiving, this time of year. I'm grateful for our game designers. I think that they've done a much better job to kind of make the sets within set play for Sealed a really, really nice and fun experience. A lot of those decks you can open on Sealed and just, you're going to have a good matchup. You're having a lot of fun. I think that they've thought ahead, that sometimes we don't give them the credits when they're seeing, multiple sets ahead, how the sets are interacting. And so I'm excited for us to be able to get back into play and to see what Winds of Exchange can offer. But I wanted to give a shout out. So thank you, game designers. Thank you, FFG.
All right, let's moving into final thoughts. Drazcor, what you got?
Well, so maybe I'll quickly rapid fire our last couple thankful things. So TCO, the guys who create TCO, right? Playing online is really, really kept the game going.
Yes.
Yeah. DOK, Redexa Keyforge, Kurathan, like just I'm on there every day. I'm on there more than almost any other website. And then how about the people here on this podcast, right? So Dr. Sheep, you ran away, but Dr. Sheep running the a lot of these AC weeklies, right? Lokacar 2. But just keeping that community going. Thank you, Dr. Sheep. We've got both Ewok and Wookie. You guys were instrumental in Keyforge Live, along with some other folks who are listening out there. And that was just an awesome experience. So thank you. Jupiter, you are running KFPL, right? That is one of the like absolute premier leagues out there, and just had lots of fun playing in it, trying to get back into it. And you also sort of, I don't know, roped me into, I don't know how you did it to get me into podcasting when we were hanging out that one Friday night playing games. You're like, hey, you should come on my podcast and we should chat a little bit. And then on the podcast, you're like, oh, it's a 3-part series. I was like, okay. And next thing I know, we're doing a whole podcast together. Now we're here in Archon's Corner. Thank you, Jupiter.
I've always liked bringing the community into the right place, right? Like I think everybody has a spot and everybody has things that they do and stuff. And I've taken a lot of pride in the idea of trying to put the right people in the right places with, the right faces, and like also getting the right Keyforge deck to the right people, because I think every deck has a home. So I've always been like, part of that. So I that's one thing I'm grateful for too. It's just that the community is just awesome. Like we're always looking out for each other. I think that like genuinely most people are like looking for the overall, not just the immediate gratification. They're looking for the overall community gratification. So and it's not always peaches and cream, but it's something. And speaking of KFPL, this weekend I do have an event on the 20th, and tomorrow, might be today when you get to hearing this, maybe already passed it, but there's the last signups are for our Friday night. So Saturday morning when I wake up, I'm not letting other people jump in because I'm gonna have to load it all myself. So make sure you get out there. I hope to see you and help seed some money for the prize pool and stuff. I do know that I will be speaking with Luxurious Playstyles, so we will be figuring out a prize for KFPL too. So there will be stuff. It might not be as glorious a cash pool as it has been before, but I'm gonna see we're gonna see what we can come up with. I know with hiatus, I expect it to be a dropped attendance and stuff. So, but hopefully not too much. And hopefully we'll see you guys out there. And if you are on hiatus from Keyforge, come back and play for KFPL. It's fun.
And if you're not on hiatus, come and play. There are so many events. You heard KFPL, so I'm glad because I had that on my shout out list. I just saw a piece that popped for French national championship coming and some amazing events. So I am unable to speak French, but please enjoy, have fun. It was great to see the Italian Keyforge Live essentially that went down. There's so many different individuals. A big shout out to Karen for Swindle and kind of what's being put on there for team events. If you haven't seen that and you're looking for an event and it's not just a weekly like, hey, come out for Sunday or Tuesday or Wednesday Chainbound. Check her out. She's doing phenomenal work. But I'm more of a podcast person myself. So I'd be remiss if I didn't have shout outs for Help from Future Self, Call of Discovery. I know that we have the Nordic Keyforge podcast. It's a great community. And so I love being a part of it. I wish that I was a little bit more active with YouTube and kind of some of the others. So I apologize if I've missed your name because there's so many people that I've met from Keyforge Live or others that, it's because of you in the community. You keep putting time and effort into it. It just makes things fun. So if I missed you, I'm sorry, but we got a great group. So keep playing some Keyforge. We love you all.
My most thankful thing before I know we sign out, my most thankful person in all of Keyforge is Sydney Steele, because she is the most awesome and positive person I've ever dealt with, period. So thank you, Sydney. You're the best.
As far as the most positive person that I have ever met, yes. Like, I wish I had 1% of her, positive outlook. I happen to be on the other end of the spectrum. But that's going to do it for us this week, guys. I want to thank everyone for listening again. Next week, you'll be hearing the Lost episode. So I really do appreciate all you guys listening, coming out, taking time out of your day. And for that, we're good now, right? We can go?
We're good.
I'm good. Happy
Okay.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
All right.
Happy Thanksgiving. Take care, guys.
Have a good holiday. We'll see y'all next time.
I'll never take down my Cheryl Teagues poster. Wrap the turkey up in aluminum foil. My brother likes to masturbate with baby oil. Turkey and sweet potato pie. Sammy Davis Jr. only had one eye. Oh, turkey for the girls and turkey for the boys. My favorite kind of pants are corduroys. Gobble, gobble, goo, and gobble, gobble, giggle. I wish turkey only cost a nickel. Oh, I love turkey on Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Thank you.